Hi, this is Miss Litton, and this is my wonderful 7th period AP Biologist review. Say hi. Hi. Okay, couple things I want to talk to you about as you're getting ready to have your first review, getting ready for essays. I would highly recommend that you open a Google Doc, one of you, and you don't want to have a ton of people that you share with, because like I said before, you can have a what on your team that you don't want. Hitchhiker. They don't contribute, but they just collect your notes. Okay, they are leeches. Okay, and you want to have people that will work together. Another thing you need to consider when writing essays, it is important that you have ownership for every single essay. Even if these two girls were my absolute besties, and I trust Anna to write a good essay, I have no ownership over that essay if only Anna writes it. And when I go to take a test, I'm doing Anna's work, right? And that, right? Okay, good. Annie, no, Anna. Oh, I was right the first time. Okay. I was like, you looked at me and I thought, I did her name wrong. So you want to make sure you own those essays for yourself. But something like taking notes in this, as I'm talking with you, it's a good idea to work with your other, your fellow classmates on a document to take those notes. But once Anna and I have both written our essays, then is it okay for me to share them with her and she can make comments, like a Google Doc where you can highlight, you could say, hey, this wasn't done very well. And I would recommend, Cole, were you looking for these, my dear?
Yeah, no, I was going to myself.
Oh, okay, well, here are your headphones. You can make comments on each other's essay, and like when we're in class and I ask you questions and I say, why is this question wrong or why is this question right? Remember how we analyze it? You can do that same thing in essays, and it will actually build your essay skills, because you will read their essay and you'll say, I think you should have said this. I think you should have said this. I don't think I was confused when I read this. Give them it back to them. They can see the comments you wrote, you can see the comments they wrote, and you can improve your essays. Again, I have no doubt that you can get a copy of any essay I've ever asked in preparation for an exam. If you don't already have it, you could have it. Like, just find one person who was in this class last year. But it will do you zero benefit unless you actually research the essay question and write it yourself. Okay? How do you go about getting those essay questions? If you go to my site, and then you go to AP Bio, some of you already know this. Scroll down to the folder, folder. Okay? And if you go under resources for review, and go into AP Biology, Potential Grid-ins, and Essays Semester 1. Okay, and there you will see a list of questions. Now, up at the top, I have the grid-ins, and does anybody know what a grid-in is? Nobody? Okay, so let me talk to you about that. They will have questions. They will have questions where you have to do the math and you don't have a multiple choice to choose from. And you will grid in, like, whatever your answer is. You need to highlight 0, decimal, 3, 5. And you pick, and you bubble it in. That's a grid in. So you write it and then you grid it in. When you look at some of these, like for instance, this number 1, if 9 molecules of a monosaccharide with the formula C6H12O6 are assembled to produce a complex carbohydrate, how many atoms of hydrogen will be in the final polymer? Okay, it's going to ask, it wants a whole number there that you would grid in. Have we talked about the important organic molecules yet and how that process takes place? No, so that doesn't apply to you yet. Some of the questions that you see in here, you would, maybe maybe you don't know. Look at question number 2. Compare the number of hydrogen ions in a solution with a pH of 2 to a solution of a pH of 6. If appropriate, include a negative sign in your answer. Is that one you could figure out now? Yeah. And so what I would do is these essay questions that I've given you, you could make a copy of them, save them in your review folder, and you could actually type in your answers to these questions and have them, and you could share, and you could talk with somebody else and what their answers are. But what you don't want to have is a leech in your group who doesn't contribute and just wants a copy of your answers. So you want to be very careful of that. So if you look up here, it says some of these questions may require content from multiple units and chapters. It's just because I have them all in a warehouse for you, and by the time the end of the semester is done, you should feel comfortable with all of them. So it may not always be an appropriate one for you to deal with. You don't know about this yet. You don't know about any of those, and those are all typical grid-ins. But if I scroll down here to free response, do we have anything here about a selectively permeable plasma membrane? Have we talked about a cell membrane yet? No. So there's nothing there, but what you want to do with this information is when I talk to you about cell membranes, which is chapter 5, I believe, can't remember off the top of my head, you're going to be, when I'm lecturing to you about it, you're going to want to be looking at this and going, do I know how to answer that question? And you could be having those questions in your head before I even give you a lecture on it. On number 2, it says prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells are physiologically different in many ways, but both represent functional, evolutionary, successful cells. And then it's talking about the cells, and you're going to be learning about this with your ed puzzle that you watch by next class. It's going to talk about how things move through organelles in cells. Keep this essay in the back of your mind as you do that. Learning about energy, non-disjunction, these are all ones that are possibilities for your different essay questions that would show up. Okay, so that's one option. Okay, and then there's one other one I want to show you, I believe. I'm going to pause this just for a minute. I wanted to give you one other document to help you focus on potential questions. The ones that I gave you in the document I just showed you are very AP-like and how they would ask you a question in a demo question. And it's hard to necessarily relate to that yet until you have the content under your belt. But if you go back into the folder, if you go into the folder and go under AP Bio, and once again look under the resources, I added another document for you. These are not always written as if it was for the College Board under resources for review. Where are you? But it helps you kind of get ready in your brain the types of things that I expect you to know. So you'll see semester 1 AP Bio potential essays. Now, this may not correlate exactly with our units this year. Think of it just as a way to see if you know different items well enough and kind of scroll through it. They are in the right order though. So the first one, oh, was I doing all that and you couldn't see what I was doing? I'm so sorry. I was showing it to you, but I could see it on my screen, but not yours. So if you look at the first one, water is essential to living systems. A, explain polar covalent bonding in a water molecule. Could you do that? Yes. Okay. And so in order to talk about polar covalent bonding, you would probably need to talk about why molecules bond in the first place, why that is considered a covalent bond, and then why it's considered a what? Polar bond. So you would want to lay out those 3 aspects of your explanation. On B, explain a hydrogen bond. Could you do that? Attraction between 2 different molecules, a partial negative and a partial positive. And then explain how polar covalency leads to the hydrogen bonding between adjacent water molecules. So you would make the connection between a polar covalent bond between an oxygen and a hydrogen of one atom, or one molecule, and why that would tend to form a hydrogen bond between another water molecule. And then in part C, it says explain 3 of the unique properties of water that are the result of hydrogen bonding. Now, did I give you more than 3 properties? Yes. What were the properties we talked about? What does water have? Yes.
Like high heat tolerance.
Yes. High heat capacity. High, yes. Vaporization. And it's what? Soluble. Cohesive and adhesive, and you would want to link those to biological bennies. You know, talking about how frozen water is less dense than liquid water. And why is that important to us? Okay, when you look at these types, when you take these questions, you can type them up, you can come up with some answers, having to come up with some conclusions about that. That would be really good preparing for your essays, because I could pull from a question like that. I could pull from those more AP-like questions that I showed you on that earlier document. That's a Google Doc. And then a third way to prepare for your written part, how much of your exam is essays? 50%. 50% is multiple choice and 50% is essay. Do you know why I have you do 50% multiple choice and 50% essay? That's exactly what the AP exam does. Okay, so then the other item that you could do is when you look at your book, at the end it has reviewing big ideas, it has the summary, it has multiple choice questions that can help you get ready for your quizzes. But then at the end it says applying the big ideas. These application level questions are also the type of AP level questions that you could get on an exam. So being able to go through and talk through those will really help you in getting ready. And that could be very overwhelming if you wait till the night. The reason why your exam still is some ways away, but you don't want to wait till the night before to prepare for your essays. So you would look between the AP-like ones and then straight up content ones and ones at the end of your book. You should start to curate some written responses. And the idea is if you can write it out as an essay, you probably are going to be able to answer a multiple choice question about it as well. Does that make sense? So when you say, you know I don't give you a lot of homework, right, other than the ed puzzles and an occasional POGL that you're going to be doing, you want to start writing these things out and keeping it and reviewing it. Because I promise you, there are students who don't do that, and the night before the test, they're like, what? It could come from here. Here's another type of question. Here's another type of question she could ask. And it's not one chapter, it's 4 chapters. And it becomes very overwhelming. So you, at this point, have 2 chapters under your belt. There wasn't really anything from the first chapter that is a question that's up here, other than maybe something on the scientific method, right? Because we learned that in the first chapter. But there are practice questions for you here in the book. And so maybe you want to differentiate it out so you know where you came from, whatever question you use, like B for book, and then you write the question and what you think your response should be. PDF for this PDF version that you got it from that, and then your Google Doc. Does that make sense? Or take the Google Doc and just add responses to this and this from these other 2 documents. You know, so I'm just trying to expose you to as many possible potential questions, because by preparing for all of them, then more than likely you are good to go for your test, your quiz. There's hard work involved in being ready for that test. It's not like, oh, I wonder what she's going to ask me. I'm real specific. These type of content questions, these type of essay questions. Prepare for them. I saw your hand.
How long should our essays be?
It is never how long. It's just, did you cover it or not? And when you take your AP exam, your first question that they ask you will be a very long one, you know, and you'll have 10 to 15, I forget it actually off the top of my head, it's 10 to 15 points just involved in that next one. Then they start being worth less and less and less. So there's long essays sometimes and there's short essays. So it really depends on what's being asked of you. Like on a longer essay question on your AP exam, they'll ask you, here's some data, graph it. What kind of analysis can you get from this? What conclusions? How could they have made this experiment better? You know what I mean? That would be a longer one. Or you have another one that could be very short. Describe 3 properties of water. You know, it's like, 6 sentences later, you're done. So it really just varies on the type of question. Yes?
How many AP, or how many essays do we get on our unit tests?
Unit tests, it really varies. You know, sometimes there might be 4, sometimes there might be 6. Maybe one is just super short, and another one is longer. So I mix it up per each one. But know that you only have 37 minutes or so to write it, so I know that. It's something that would be done in a reasonable amount of time if you're a master of that content. And also know that I have a lot of grading to do. And the more I ask you to write, the more I have to grade. So let's keep that in mind too. That is one thing. Students who, you know what it means to pad your essay, right? So you write off topic just so it looks like you have a lot of things there. That does not impress me. Concise, supported points, that impresses me. You know, make a statement and support it. You know how you do in your labs, claim, evidence, reason? It's kind of how you're doing in your essays too. If they ask a question, you're going to say, well, I think it's this, and here's why, because of blah, blah, and blah, and here's why they would do that. And you explain it out in a way that's concise, and you make your point. And you'll get used to it as you go along, you know, but I wanted to meet with you today so you would start, because these are like, now that we're done with chapter 2, these are the first essays you can really write since the beginning. Okay, more questions or concerns on that? Okay, so you have a quiz what day? Wednesday. So when is our review for that quiz? Tomorrow. Okay, so make sure you do that. And then do I have any period 3 people in here? For some reason, and about 3/4 of you did it, but for some reason, science practice number 5 did not post in Google Classroom. But on my view of Edpuzzle, it says it's posted, but it's not really posted in your Google Classroom. So some of you saw it when you went into my classes and you saw that it was due and you did it, and yay for you. For those of you who didn't do it, you can go, when you go to do your Edpuzzle for Wednesday that you have due, go ahead and go into my classwork, and you can see that it's science practice number 5. It's not 005, that was a long time ago. It's just straight up 5. Like it has, I think I put like a slash mark 5, like an accent mark 5. And it's assigned through Edpuzzle, so I changed the due date on that one to the 23rd. If you've already done it, you'll see that you have it done. But if you didn't do it, it posted in first period, it just didn't post in third. So I apologize for that. I don't know what went on, but it didn't make it to the surface. So do that one. And I don't remember how long it is. Also, I had a POGL that was due on Wednesday. You'll look in your homework and you're gonna wanna ask me like, what is this? I have withdrawn from assigning it to you till we get a little bit farther along because we're just a little bit behind. Okay? Other questions or concerns you have? Tell the person next to you right now before you leave when you're going to start working on your essays. Okay, and glad you were here, and start working on your essays.